Every year, thousands of people dressed as zombies flood downtown Portland for the annual zombie walk. Prosthetics, fake blood, it was all part of the fun. But on October 31st, 2019, something changed. At 7:47 p.m., someone in the crowd wasn't pretending anymore. And by 8:15 p.m., neither were 300 others. Emma Rhodes adjusted her camera lens, framing the perfect shot. A woman in a tattered wedding dress stumbled past, her face painted gray, fake blood dripping from her mouth. Behind her, a businessman zombie in a shredded suit dragged his briefcase along the pavement. The setting sun cast an orange glow over downtown Portland, and the energy was electric. This was Emma's third year covering the zombie walk for the Portland Tribune. What started as a small gathering had exploded into one of the city's biggest Halloween traditions. Nearly 5,000 people showed up this year, all committed to their undead personas. The streets pulsed with music, laughter, and the shuffle of thousands of feet pretending to be corpses. Emma loved this assignment. There was something beautiful about the creativity, the way people transformed themselves. She moved through the crowd, her camera clicking rapidly. A father and son duo both covered in latex wounds. A group of teenagers who'd clearly spent weeks perfecting their rotting flesh makeup. An elderly couple holding hands dressed as vintage zombies from a 1950s horror film. The parade route stretched from Pioneer Courthouse Square down Morrison Street. Food trucks lined the sidewalks, selling everything from brain-shaped cupcakes to contaminated slushies. Street performers worked the crowd. A local band played Thriller covers from a flatbed truck. It was chaos in the best possible way. But then Emma saw him. He stood near the intersection of Morrison and 3rd Avenue, completely still while everyone around him moved. His costume was different from the others. More realistic. The skin tone wasn't painted. It looked discolored, mottled with patches of yellow and green. His clothes hung on his frame like they'd been worn for weeks. No theatrical blood, no obvious prosthetics, just wrong. Emma raised her camera. Through the viewfinder, she could see his eyes. They weren't clouded with contacts or makeup. They were filmed over naturally, like cataracts but worse. Milky white with broken blood vessels spreading through the whites like cracks in ice. He turned his head toward her. The movement was jerky, unnatural, not like someone acting, like someone whose muscles weren't quite responding correctly. A woman in a nurse zombie costume stumbled into him, laughing. "Whoa, sorry buddy, great makeup though, seriously." He grabbed her arm. The woman kept laughing, thinking it was part of the act. Okay, method acting, I get it." He bit her shoulder. The woman's laughter turned into a scream. A real scream. The kind that cut through every other sound on the street. She tried to pull away, but his teeth were locked into her flesh. Blood, real blood, bright red and flowing, soaked through her white costume. People nearby stopped. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a performance. Others pulled out their phones to record. Emma's finger hovered over the shutter button, frozen. A man in a police officer zombie costume rushed forward. Hey, that's not cool, man." He grabbed the attacker's shoulders, trying to pull him off. The woman finally broke free, stumbling backward, her hand pressed against the wound. Her palm came away red. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at her own blood. "Oh my God, he actually bit me. He bit me." The attacker turned toward the fake police officer. His mouth was covered in blood now. Fresh blood. He lunged. Emma's instincts kicked in. She started shooting, not with a weapon, but with her camera. Click, click, click. The images captured everything. The attacker's face. The terror in the police officer's eyes as he realized this wasn't a costume. The moment the crowd's laughter died. Then someone else screamed. 30 feet away, near the taco truck. Then another scream from the opposite direction, near the stage. Emma spun around, her camera following the sounds. 3 more people, all with that same wrong look, that same unnatural movement, were attacking the crowd. And in the chaos of 5,000 people dressed as zombies, nobody could tell who was real and who wasn't. The festival atmosphere shattered. People started running, but in costume and makeup, everyone looked like a threat. A teenager in zombie makeup ran past Emma. genuine terror on his face, chased by someone who might have been his friend in costume, or might have been something else entirely. Emma's journalist instincts warred with her survival instincts. She should run. But she kept shooting, documenting everything through her lens. That's when she noticed the pattern. The infected, and she was starting to think of them as infected, weren't random. They'd been strategically placed throughout the crowd. Someone had planned this. A hand grabbed Emma's shoulder. She spun, raising her camera like a weapon. "Whoa, press, press!" A man in a paramedic vest held up his hands. He wasn't in costume, real badge, real gear. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm..." Emma's voice caught. "This is real. This is actually happening." The paramedic's radio crackled with overlapping voices. "Multiple casualties. Unknown pathogen. Request backup." The words tumbled over each other in increasing panic. "We need to get off the street," he said. "Now." Emma looked back at the crowd. What had been organized chaos was now just chaos. People trampled each other trying to escape. The infected moved through them like sharks through water, impossible to distinguish until it was too late. Blood mixed with fake blood. Real screams mixed with recorded horror sound effects still playing from speakers. The irony was suffocating. They'd all come here to pretend to be monsters. And now, surrounded by thousands of people in zombie makeup, the real monsters were invisible. The paramedic, his name tag read James Rivera, pulled Emma toward the sidewalk. His radio continued its stream of panic. "All units, we have multiple 1052s, I repeat. Multiple injuries at Morrison and 3rd. Victims displaying extreme aggression. Possible drug-related incident." "It's not drugs," Emma said, her camera still clicking automatically. Years of photojournalism had trained her fingers to keep shooting, even when her brain wanted to freeze. "Look at them. Really look." James followed her gaze. One of the infected had cornered a group against a storefront. A real police officer, Emma could tell by the pepper spray he was deploying, tried to intervene. The spray hit the infected man directly in the face. He didn't even flinch, just kept advancing, his movements mechanical, determined. "Jesus," James whispered. "Pepper spray should drop anyone." The crowd surged toward them, a wave of panic pushing hundreds of people in every direction at once. Emma and James were swept along, pressed against bodies painted gray and red, unable to tell who was running from danger and who was the danger. A girl, maybe 17, dressed as a prom queen zombie, stumbled and fell in front of them. Emma reached down instinctively, grabbing the girl's arm. But when the girl looked up, Emma saw it. That film over the eyes. That wrong color to the skin. "Let go!" James yanked Emma back just as the girl's teeth snapped at Emma's wrist. They crashed into a newspaper stand, magazines scattering across the sidewalk. The girl rose with that same jerky movement, but the crowd swallowed her up before she could reach them again. Somewhere in the mass of bodies, someone else screamed. The sound was wet, cut short. "The coffee shop," a voice shouted from Emma's right. A teenage boy in a Superman costume, incongruous among all the zombies, was pointing at a storefront across the street. "The door's still open." Emma didn't think. She ran. James was right behind her, and somehow the Superman kid stayed with them. They weaved through the panicked crowd, jumping over abandoned props and dropped candy bags. A man in an elaborate zombie gorilla costume blocked their path, and Emma couldn't tell if he was infected or just frozen in fear. They went around him. The coffee shop was called The Daily Grind. Through the window, Emma could see an elderly woman inside, frantically gesturing for them to hurry. The door was open just a crack. They hit it together, Emma, James, Superman kid, and tumbled inside. The elderly woman slammed the door behind them and turned the lock. "Help me with this." She was already dragging a table toward the entrance. They moved on autopilot. Tables, chairs, a magazine rack, anything that could create a barricade. Through the window, Emma watched the chaos continue. People ran past in waves. The infected moved among them, taking down victims one by one. Each new victim would convulse for a moment, then rise with that same mechanical purpose. "How long?" Emma asked, not sure what she was even asking. How long until help arrived? How long until they were safe? How long until everyone out there was infected? Look. Superman kid. Tyler, he said his name was Tyler Martinez, pointed at the TV mounted in the corner. The coffee shop had left it on, probably to add to the Halloween atmosphere, but now it showed live news coverage. A reporter stood in front of the Portland zombie walk, but she could have been in front of any disaster. Behind her, police cars and ambulances flashed red and blue. CDC has been notified. Officials are urging anyone in the downtown area to shelter in place. This is not, I repeat, not part of the Halloween festivities. Multiple victims have been transported to area hospitals with severe bite wounds and are displaying symptoms of extreme aggression, and the feed cut to another scene. Seattle. Another zombie walk, another outbreak, then Atlanta, then Austin. 4 cities, the elderly woman, Mrs. Foster, she introduced herself, said quietly. 4 zombie walks, all at the same time. James stared at the screen, his face pale beneath his paramedic tan. That's not a coincidence, someone did this on purpose. Emma's hands were shaking as she lowered her camera. She'd been holding it up this entire time, barely aware she was still documenting everything. She looked down at the display screen, scrolling back through the images. The crowd before the panic, the first attack, the spread of infection, and there, she stopped on one image. In the background of a shot she'd taken of the food trucks, there was a man. He wasn't in costume. He wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. But that wasn't what made Emma's blood run cold. He was holding something, a small device like a perfume atomizer or a vape pen, and he was spraying it into the air near the crowd. Oh God, Emma zoomed in on the image. The man's face was partially visible, mid-40s maybe, dark stubble, a scar on his left cheek. Oh God, look at this. She turned the camera so the others could see. Tyler leaned in close. Is that what I think it is? He was dispersing something, James said. His medical training was evident in how quickly he understood. An aerosol. Jesus Christ, he weaponized it, and he did it here because nobody would notice, Mrs. Foster finished. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped her purse like a lifeline. Thousands of people dressed as zombies by the time anyone realized something was wrong. It had already spread, Emma said. Outside, something slammed against the window. They all jumped. An infected man pressed his face against the glass, his mouth working soundlessly. His eyes, those terrible filmed-over eyes, locked onto Emma. After a moment, he moved on, following the movement of easier prey in the street. Tyler pulled out his phone. No signal, everyone's probably trying to call at once. Emma checked her own phone. Same thing, no service. The networks were overloaded. On the TV, the coverage had shifted. A CDC spokesperson stood at a podium, trying to maintain calm while clearly terrified. Appears to be a prion-based pathogen, similar to Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease but with a dramatically accelerated progression. Transmission occurs through bodily fluids. If you have been bitten or scratched by an infected individual, please seek medical attention immediately. Prions, James said. That's why the pepper spray didn't work. It's not affecting their pain response. It's rewiring their entire nervous system. Mrs. Foster walked to the window, careful to stay to the side where she couldn't be seen from the street. My husband died from CJD. It took 18 months. Are you telling me this does the same thing in minutes? Someone modified it, Emma said, still staring at the photo of the man with the aerosol device. Someone engineered this, and they chose Halloween, chose Zombie Walk specifically because a scream cut her off. This one was close, right outside. They watched as a woman in a cat costume, one of the few non-zombie costumes Emma had seen tonight, was pulled down by 3 infected. She fought, kicking and clawing, but there were too many. When they moved away, she lay still for 15 seconds. Emma counted. Then the woman sat up. Her cat ears had fallen off. Blood covered her face, and when she stood, that same jerky movement, that same mechanical purpose. She turned and began walking, searching for someone else to spread the infection to. 15 seconds, Tyler whispered. That's all it takes? James was checking his supplies, a small first aid kit from his belt, some gauze, antiseptic, nothing that would help against what was happening outside. If it's an engineered prion, the incubation period could be almost instantaneous. The CDC said transmission through bodily fluids, but if he was aerosolizing it, then everyone who breathed it in is already infected, Emma said. They just don't know it yet. The implications settled over them like a shroud. How many people had been at the walk? 5,000? More? How many had breathed in that aerosol? How many were walking around right now, thinking they'd escaped, while the infection incubated inside them? Mrs. Foster sat down heavily in one of the cafe chairs. This is how it ends then. This is how the world ends, with a joke that became real. Emma looked down at her camera, at the photo of the man who'd done this. His face was captured in 3 frames, that was all. 3 frames where the angle was just right, where he'd turned at just the right moment. But 3 frames might be enough. We have to get this out, Emma said. This photo. If someone recognizes him, if they can track him down. The networks are down, Tyler reminded her. Not the cellular networks, the internet. Emma checked her camera's Wi-Fi function, still connected to the coffee shop's router. If I can upload this to the cloud, to my newspaper's server, then even if we don't make it out. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. James moved to the window again. More infected had gathered outside. They weren't attacking each other. That was the thing that made it so much worse. They retained enough cognitive function to distinguish between infected and uninfected. They were hunting specifically for healthy victims. How long do you think we have? Tyler asked. He was trying to sound brave, but his voice cracked. Until they break through? Emma started uploading the photos. The coffee shop's internet was slow, overloaded like everything else. The progress bar crawled across her screen. 5%, 8%, 12%. I don't know, James answered honestly, but I know we need a plan for when they do. The coffee shop felt smaller with each passing minute. Emma sat at a table near the back, her laptop open, connected to her camera. The photos uploaded one by one to her newspaper's secure server. Outside, the sounds had changed. Fewer screams now. More of that shuffling sound, hundreds of feet dragging across pavement. Uploads at 42%, Emma said, watching the progress bar. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd covered house fires, car accidents, even a shooting once. But this was different. This felt like watching the world end in real time. Tyler had found the coffee shop's first aid kit and was inventorying supplies. We've got bandages, some antiseptic, a couple of those instant ice packs. Not exactly a survival kit. There's a back door, Mrs. Foster said. She'd been exploring the shop while the others worked. It leads to an alley. The alley connects to Pine Street. James moved to check it. The back room was small, storage mostly, boxes of coffee beans and paper cups. The door was solid metal with a deadbolt. He tested it, locked tight. If we need to run, this is our exit, but we'd be going blind. No way to know what's in that alley. The TV continued its loop of horror. The news anchors had stopped trying to maintain professional composure. One was openly crying as she read reports from emergency rooms. Victims arrived aggressive, attacking staff. Security had to restrain them. Within minutes, those victims died. Cardiac arrest, respiratory failure, brain hemorrhage. Then they got back up. Died and got back up, Tyler repeated, staring at the screen. That's not possible. That's not how biology works. Neither are prions that work in 15 seconds, James said. We're past what's possible. Emma's phone suddenly buzzed. She grabbed it. One bar of signal, just for a moment. A text from her editor. Emma, where are you? Need confirmation on photos. She typed back quickly. Sheltering in place downtown. Photos are real. 4 cities. Coordinated attack. Have image of suspect. The message failed to send. The signal was gone again. Emma wanted to throw the phone across the room. 68%, she said instead. watching the upload crawl forward. Mrs. Foster had made herself tea. The normalcy of the action was surreal. Water boiling in an electric kettle while the apocalypse unfolded outside. She offered cups to the others. Tyler accepted. James declined. Emma couldn't imagine swallowing anything. My granddaughter was supposed to be here tonight, Mrs. Foster said quietly, stirring honey into her tea. She's 15, loves Halloween. I told her she could go with her friends, but I made her promise to text me every hour. She checked her phone. Last text was at 7:30. Having the best time, Grandma, you should see my makeup. Emma didn't know what to say. What could anyone say? Tyler moved to the window, careful to stay behind the barricade. There's more of them now, they're just standing there, like they're waiting for something. James joined him. The street outside had transformed into something from a nightmare. Dozens of infected stood in clusters, their movements synchronized in an unsettling way. Some swayed slightly, others stood perfectly still. All of them faced the same direction, toward the remaining pockets of survivors. It's like they're hunting, James said. But organized, coordinated. On the TV, a virologist was being interviewed. The most concerning aspect is the preservation of certain higher brain functions. These are not mindless attackers. The pathogen appears to target the limbic system and prefrontal cortex selectively, suppressing inhibition and empathy while maintaining motor skills and what we might call predatory intelligence. The screen flickered and switched to handheld footage. Someone's phone camera, the video shaky and dark. A woman's voice. I'm in my apartment on 5th Avenue. They're in the building. I can hear them in the hallway, breaking down doors. If anyone sees this, the feed cut off. The news anchor was pale. We've lost that connection. For anyone just joining us, the CDC is now calling this event Zero. They're establishing quarantine zones around affected cities. Military deployment is expected within the hour. Military, Tyler said. That means they'll shoot anything that moves in the quarantine zone. We need to get out before they lock it down. Emma's laptop chimed. Upload complete. All 847 photos from tonight, including the 3 crucial frames of the man with the aerosol device, were now backed up on the Tribune's server. She immediately started writing an email to her editor, attaching the specific photos, explaining what she'd witnessed. But when she hit send, the email bounced back. Server error. No, Emma whispered. She tried again. Same error. The newspaper's email servers were down, overloaded probably, or deliberately shut down as part of emergency protocols. She switched tactics, cloud storage. She uploaded the photos to every service she had access to. Google Drive, Dropbox, her personal website. If she could just get them somewhere, anywhere, where someone might find them. A loud bang made them all jump. Something had hit the window. An infected man stood outside, his fist raised. He hit the glass again. A crack spider-webbed from the impact point. The barricade, James said. We need to reinforce it. They piled on more furniture. A bookshelf. The espresso machine. Bags of coffee beans. Anything with weight. The infected man kept hitting the window. Other infected gathered behind him, drawn by the noise. Tyler's phone suddenly rang, a piercing sound in the tense silence. He scrambled to answer it. Mom, I'm okay, His face fell. The line's dead. But the brief connection had given Emma an idea. Social media. We don't need email servers. We need direct uploads. She pulled up Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Her hands flew across the keyboard. She posted the photos of the aerosol man with captions, Portland zombie walk attack was planned. This man deliberately released pathogen into crowd. If anyone recognizes him, contact FBI immediately. Similar attacks in Seattle, Atlanta, Austin. This was coordinated terrorism. She hit post on all platforms. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, upload failed. Connection timeout. Try again. Come on, Emma muttered, hitting retry over and over. The window cracked further. The infected man had been joined by others. They took turns hitting the glass, methodical in their attack. The window wouldn't hold much longer. We need to move, James said. Now, while we still can. Just a few more seconds. Emma's phone finally connected. The posts went through. All of them. Photos of the suspect plastered across her social media accounts, each with thousands of followers. It wasn't the Tribune's front page, but it was something. It was evidence that wouldn't die even if they did. She grabbed her camera and laptop. Okay, I'm ready. Mrs. Foster was already at the back door, her purse over her shoulder. The alley. We go right toward Pine Street, then we try to get to the police perimeter. They have to let us through, we're not infected. They don't know that, Tyler said quietly. To them, we're just more people from inside the quarantine zone. Then we make them understand, Emma said. We show them my photos. We tell them what we know. We have information that could help them stop this. James unbolted the back door. On 3. We move fast and quiet. Stay together. If anyone... He paused, choosing his words carefully. If anyone gets bitten, you tell us immediately, understood? They nodded. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the front window, the glass finally gave way. The infected poured through the opening, climbing over their barricade with disturbing agility. 3, James said, and threw open the back door. The alley was dark. Dumpsters lined one side. Fire escapes zigzagged up the buildings on the other. The smell hit Emma first. Garbage mixed with something else. Something metallic and wrong. They ran right toward Pine Street. Emma's camera bag bounced against her hip. Behind them, she could hear the infected following, their footsteps echoing off the narrow walls. They burst out of the alley onto Pine Street and stopped. The scene was chaos. Police cars formed a hasty blockade at the intersection. Officers in riot gear stood behind them, weapons drawn. And between the barricade and Emma's group were at least 30 infected, all turning toward the sound of their arrival. Back, James shouted, but it was too late. The infected moved as one, cutting off their retreat into the alley. They were trapped. Police on one side, infected on the other, and nowhere to run. Emma raised her camera one more time. If these were going to be her last photos, she'd make them count. She captured it all. The police perimeter, the infected advancing, the terror and determination on her companions' faces. Through her viewfinder, she saw an officer raising a megaphone. Stay where you are. Do not approach the perimeter. We're not infected, Emma screamed. We have information. We know who did this. But her voice was lost in the chaos. And the infected were getting closer. One of them, a woman who still wore the remains of a cheerleader costume, reached for Tyler. He dodged, slipping on something wet. Mrs. Foster pulled him back up. Emma kept shooting photos, kept documenting. These images were uploading automatically now to her cloud storage. Someone would find them. Someone would know what happened here. The infected circled closer. James had found a piece of metal pipe from the alley, holding it like a baseball bat. Tyler had a trash can lid. Mrs. Foster stood between them all, her purse clutched like a shield. And Emma had her camera, still shooting, still recording, still refusing to look away from the truth no matter how terrible it was. On the police line, someone was arguing, pointing at Emma's group, making a decision that would determine whether they lived or died. The infected lunged forward. James swung his pipe. Tyler raised his lid. And Emma's camera kept clicking, documenting the moment the world changed forever, one frame at a time. The infected cheerleader grabbed for Tyler again. He slammed the trash can lid into her face, a sickening crunch of metal on bone. She staggered back but didn't fall, didn't stop, just reset her approach and came again. The perimeter, James shouted. We have to break through. But the police weren't moving. They stood behind their barricade, weapons raised, faces hidden behind riot shields. One officer had his finger on a trigger. Emma could see it even from here. One wrong move and they'd all be shot. Emma made a decision. She ran forward, not toward the infected, but toward the police line. Her camera held high above her head. Press. I'm Press. Portland Tribune. Emma, what are you? James's voice was drowned out by the chaos. She ran harder, dodging between two infected, her camera still raised. I have evidence. Photos of the suspect. You need to see these. An officer stepped forward, his weapon trained on her chest. Stop right there. Do not cross this line. Look at my camera. Emma was 10 feet from the barricade now. She could see her reflection in the officer's visor. Look at my credentials. She pulled her press badge from her pocket with one hand, holding it up. I documented everything. The outbreak started at 7:47 p.m. A man in the crowd was dispersing an aerosol compound. I have his face on camera. 3 clear shots. If you let me through, I can... An infected man grabbed her from behind, his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her backward. Emma screamed. The camera fell from her hand, hitting the pavement hard. The lens cracked. James was there instantly, his pipe connecting with the infected man's skull. Once. Twice. The grip loosened. Emma tore free, diving for her camera. The lens was ruined, but the memory card was intact. She ripped it from the camera body and held it up to the police. Everything's on this, the photos, the timestamps, the suspect's face. You need to get this to the CDC, to the FBI. Get back. The officer was shouting now. Behind Emma, the infected were regrouping. Mrs. Foster and Tyler had retreated to a doorway, pressing themselves against the wall. James stood between them and the infected, his pipe raised. Emma looked down at the memory card in her hand. 16 gigabytes of evidence. Proof that this wasn't random. Proof that someone had planned this. And she was standing in the middle of a street, about to be torn apart by infected victims or shot by police who couldn't risk letting anyone through. There was only one option. Emma threw the memory card. Threw it as hard as she could over the heads of the infected, over the police barricade. It arced through the air, a tiny piece of plastic carrying the weight of the truth. An officer caught it. Pure reflex. He looked down at what he'd caught, confused, then looked up at Emma. She could see the question in his eyes even through the visor. Check it, Emma screamed. Please, just check it. The infected were on her. Emma felt hands grabbing her jacket, her hair. She kicked and fought, her years of self-defense classes kicking in on autopilot. Tyler appeared beside her, swinging his trash can lid. James pulled her backward toward the doorway where Mrs. Foster waited. They tumbled through an open door, an office building lobby abandoned. James slammed the door shut. It was glass, reinforced but not unbreakable. They watched as the infected gathered outside, pressing against the glass. It wouldn't hold long. Emma's phone buzzed. Impossible, there was no signal. But the screen showed a notification. Her cloud storage. The automatic upload had completed. Every photo she'd taken tonight was now backed up on 3 different servers. Even if the memory card was destroyed, even if they didn't make it out, the evidence would survive. Tyler slid down the wall, his trash can lid falling from his hands. He was crying. This is insane. This is actually insane. We're trapped in here and those things are out there and the cops won't help us and... Tyler. Mrs. Foster's voice was surprisingly steady. She sat down beside him, putting an arm around his shoulders. Breathe. Just breathe. Emma checked her phone. One notification had gotten through, from her editor. Photos received. FBI contacted. You did it, Emma. Now get the hell out of there. She wanted to laugh. Get out. Right. Because it was just that simple. James was checking the building's interior. There's stairs. We can get to the upper floors. Maybe find another way out. Or trap ourselves, Tyler said. We're already trapped. James's voice was harsh with exhaustion. At least up there, we might have options. The glass door cracked. The infected had started hitting it in that same methodical way they'd attacked the coffee shop. One would hit, step back, let another hit. It was efficient, organized, wrong. Let's move, Emma said. She grabbed her broken camera. Habit more than anything. The memory card was gone, but the body still had her personal photos. Her life before tonight. She wasn't ready to let that go. They climbed. First floor, second, third. The building was a generic office space, cubicles and conference rooms and water coolers. Everything normal, everything untouched by the horror outside. It felt like walking through a museum exhibit of the world before, At the 4th floor, they stopped. Tyler had found a conference room with windows overlooking the street. They could see the police perimeter from here, and they could see what was happening. The infection had spread. The entire downtown area was a sea of infected, thousands of them, all moving with that same terrible purpose. And at the perimeter, the police were pulling back, reorganizing, preparing for something bigger. "They're going to firebomb it," James said quietly. "The whole area. It's the only way to contain this." Emma's phone buzzed again. Another notification. Her photos were going viral. The image of the aerosol man had been shared 10,000 times in the last 15 minutes. Then 50,000. Then 100,000. Comments flooded in. Someone recognized him. Someone knew who he was. Dr. Marcus Webb, Emma read aloud, formerly with the CDC, fired 3 years ago for ethics violations, was working on a prion-based bioweapon before his termination. "They found him," Tyler said. "Holy shit, they actually found him." "Finding him doesn't undo what he did," Mrs. Foster said. She was looking out the window at the infected below. "All those people, all those families," Emma kept reading. The FBI had issued a statement. Dr. Webb was wanted for bioterrorism. His photo was on every news channel. Tips were coming in about his location. The investigation was moving fast, but down in the streets, people were still dying, still transforming, still adding to the numbers of infected. James's radio, he'd kept it this whole time, crackled to life. "All units prepare for evacuation protocol. Military assets inbound. ETA 15 minutes. All non-essential personnel clear the area. Repeat, all personnel clear the area." 15 minutes, Tyler said. "What happens in 15 minutes?" They all knew. They'd seen enough disaster movies, enough news reports about containment procedures. 15 minutes was when the military arrived, when the quarantine became absolute, when anyone left inside the zone became acceptable losses. Emma looked at her broken camera, at her phone with its dying battery, at the 3 people who'd become her companions in this nightmare. They'd documented everything. They'd gotten the evidence out. They'd done what needed to be done. But it might not be enough to save them. "The roof," Emma said suddenly. "We get to the roof, we make ourselves visible. We wave, we signal, we make them see us as survivors and not infected." It was a long shot, but it was something. They climbed 2 more floors. The door to the roof was locked. James kicked it once, twice, 3 times. It flew open. Fresh air hit them. Cold October air that smelled like smoke and fear. They could see the whole city from here. The fires starting in the distance. The helicopter searchlights sweeping across buildings. The military convoy approaching from the east. Emma pulled out her phone. Battery at 8%. She opened the camera app and set it to video. Then she propped it against the roof's edge, angled at their faces. "What are you doing?" Tyler asked. "Last testament," Emma said, "in case we don't make it." She hit record. "My name is Emma Rhodes. It's October 31st, 2019, approximately 9:47 p.m. I'm on the roof of an office building on Pine Street in downtown Portland. With me are James Rivera, a paramedic, Tyler Martinez, 17 years old, and Catherine Foster, retired teacher." She adjusted the phone so all their faces were visible. "If you're watching this, it means the photos I uploaded made it out. It means you know what Dr. Marcus Webb did here tonight." Emma's voice steadied as she spoke. This was what she knew. This was her job. Telling the truth. No matter what it cost. The outbreak started at 7:47 p.m. during the annual zombie walk. Webb dispersed an aerosolized pathogen into the crowd. He chose this event specifically because the symptoms, aggression, altered movement, violent behavior, would be dismissed as performance art until it was too late to contain. He did the same thing in Seattle, Atlanta, and Austin. 4 cities, 4 coordinated attacks. Below them, a helicopter swept past, its searchlight painting the streets white. Emma could see the infected clearly from this height. They'd gathered in massive clusters, like a macabre parody of the festival they'd come to attend. The incubation period is approximately 15 seconds after exposure to infected bodily fluids. Emma continued. Victims display extreme aggression and retain enough cognitive function to hunt uninfected people specifically. They don't attack each other. They coordinate, and they don't stop. Mrs. Foster stepped forward, her hands clasped in front of her. My granddaughter Emma Fitzpatrick, 15 years old, was at the walk tonight. If she's still alive, if anyone finds her, please tell her that her grandmother loves her. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't keep her safe. Tyler wiped his eyes. My mom and dad are in Beaverton. If you find them, tell them I tried. Tell them I fought. James said nothing. He just stared out at the city, his jaw tight. Emma checked the time on her phone. 11 minutes until the military arrived. The battery dropped to 6%. We're going to try to signal them, Emma said to the camera. We're going to try to get rescued. But if we don't, if this is the last record of what happened here, then please make sure people know the truth. This wasn't a natural outbreak. This wasn't an accident. This was murder, mass murder, and Dr. Marcus Webb is responsible. She ended the recording and immediately uploaded it to every platform she could access. The video started uploading. 23%, 45%, 67%. Look, Tyler pointed toward the military convoy. Humvees and transport trucks were setting up a secondary perimeter, this one farther out. Behind them, civilian vehicles were being turned away. The quarantine was expanding. James found a reflective emergency blanket in his paramedic kit. We can use this. Signal with the reflection. He started waving it, catching the light from the helicopter searchlights. Emma joined him, waving her arms. Tyler pulled off his Superman shirt, bright red, visible even in the dark, and waved it like a flag. Mrs. Foster found a flashlight app on her phone and pointed it toward the helicopters, flashing SOS. For 5 agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The helicopters continued their sweep. The military continued their perimeter setup. Below, the infected continued their methodical attack on the building's entrance. Then one helicopter changed course. Its searchlight swung toward their building, sweeping up the sides until it found them. 4 figures on a roof, waving frantically. The helicopter circled once, twice. Emma could see someone inside with binoculars, studying them, looking for signs of infection probably, looking for any reason to leave them behind. Emma held up her press badge, catching the light. She pointed to James's paramedic uniform. She gestured to Mrs. Foster and Tyler, trying to convey, we're survivors, we're human, we're worth saving. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled over a loudspeaker. Remain where you are. Extraction team inbound. Do not attempt to leave the roof. Tyler let out a sob of relief. Mrs. Foster grabbed Emma's hand, squeezing hard. James closed his eyes, his emergency blanket falling to his sides. They waited. Emma's phone battery hit 3%. The video had finished uploading. Her editor had sent one final message. Entire newsroom watching your uploads. You're on every channel. Stay alive, Emma. Below, the infected had broken through the ground floor. Emma could hear them in the stairwell now, climbing, hunting, getting closer. A second helicopter appeared, this one military. It hovered over the roof as ropes dropped. 4 soldiers in hazmat suits rappelled down, hitting the roof with practiced efficiency. Anyone bitten? The lead soldier's voice was muffled through his mask. Anyone scratched? Any contact with infected blood? They all shook their heads. We need to check you. Standard quarantine protocol. The soldiers pulled out handheld scanners, running them over each person. Temperature checks, blood oxygen levels, pupil response. Whatever they were looking for, Emma prayed they wouldn't find it. The door to the roof burst open. Infected poured through, dozens of them moving as one, their filmed-over eyes locked on the survivors. Go, go, go! The lead soldier grabbed Emma and clipped her to a harness. We're out of time! Everything happened fast. Emma was yanked into the air, the roof falling away beneath her. She twisted in the harness, watching as the other soldiers evacuated Tyler, Mrs. Foster, and James. Below, the infected swarmed the roof, reaching upward with grasping hands. The helicopter banked hard, pulling away from the building. Through the open door, Emma could see the full scope of the disaster. Downtown Portland was lost. Thousands of infected filled the streets. Fires burned in multiple locations. And at the edges, the military was setting up barriers that looked far too permanent. They weren't planning to reclaim the city. They were planning to seal it off. The soldier unclipped Emma's harness. "You're the photographer, Emma Rhodes." She nodded, unable to speak. "Your photos got Dr. Webb. FBI picked him up 20 minutes ago trying to cross into Canada. He had enough pathogen in his car to hit a dozen more cities." The soldier's eyes were visible through his mask. Young, exhausted, grateful. "You saved a lot of lives tonight, ma'am." Emma looked back at the burning city, at the thousands of people who hadn't been saved. "Doesn't feel like it." They flew east, away from the quarantine zone. Below, Emma could see the scope of the military response. Roadblocks every mile, armed checkpoints, field hospitals set up for evacuees who needed screening. The helicopter landed at a makeshift command center in a shopping mall parking lot. Medical tents lined one side, command vehicles on the other. Hundreds of people sat in cordoned areas, waiting to be processed. Emma, Tyler, Mrs. Foster, and James were hustled into a medical tent. More tests. Blood draws this time. Nasal swabs. A doctor in full PPE explained they'd be held for observation for 72 hours. Standard quarantine procedure. Make sure they weren't infected. In a curtained-off section of the tent, Emma was finally alone. Someone had given her scrubs to change into. Her clothes, covered in fake blood and real blood in the dust of a collapsing city, went into a biohazard bag. Her phone, now at 1% battery, buzzed one last time. A text from her editor. "Take all the time you need. Your photos are front page worldwide. You did your job, Emma. You told the truth. Now rest." Emma looked at her broken camera, sitting on the gurney beside her. The lens was cracked beyond repair, but she'd gotten the shots that mattered. She'd documented the moment the world changed. Outside the tent, she could hear voices. Families being reunited. Survivors sharing their stories. Emergency workers coordinating response efforts. The sounds of people refusing to give up, even after everything. A nurse pulled back the curtain. "Ms. Rhodes, there's someone here to see you." Mrs. Foster stepped through, her eyes red but determined. "They found her. They found Emma. My granddaughter. She was in at the walk. She'd gone to use the bathroom in a coffee shop when everything started. She hid in the back room." The elderly woman's voice broke. "She's alive. She's in quarantine, but she's alive." Emma stood and hugged her. They held each other, two people who'd survived the impossible, finding comfort in the fact that sometimes the story had a happy ending, even if just a small one. Tyler appeared next, his mother and father on either side of him. They were crying, holding him like they'd never let go. He looked over their shoulders at Emma and mouthed, "Thank you." James stood in the entrance of the tent, talking to other paramedics, comparing notes, sharing information, already planning how to help the thousands of people who'd need medical care in the coming days. Emma sat back down on the gurney. Her phone died, the screen going black. She set it aside. She didn't need it anymore. The truth was out there now. The photos, the video, the evidence. Dr. Marcus Webb was in custody. The CDC knew what they were dealing with. The investigation was underway. But Portland was still burning. Seattle, Atlanta, and Austin too. Thousands were dead. Thousands more were infected, sealed behind military barricades. The world had fundamentally changed in the span of 2 hours, and Emma had documented all of it, frame by frame, moment by moment, because that's what journalists did. They bore witness. They told the truth. Even when the truth was terrible, a CDC official entered the tent. "Ms. Rhodes, we need you to walk us through everything you saw, from the beginning. Every detail matters." Emma nodded. She'd tell them everything. She'd give them every piece of information that might help contain this nightmare. But first, she had one question. "The death toll. How many?" The official hesitated. "We don't have final numbers yet, but across all 4 cities, We're estimating between 10 and 15,000 casualties. And that's just initial outbreak zones. We're tracking secondary infections in hospitals, evacuation centers. 15,000 people, dead or infected or trapped behind quarantine lines, because one man decided to turn Halloween into a weapon. I want to see him, Emma said suddenly. Dr. Webb. When he goes to trial, I want to be there. I want to look him in the eye and ask him why. The official nodded. I'm sure that can be arranged. Emma closed her eyes. She could still hear it, the screams, the shuffle of infected feet, the sound of glass breaking. She'd hear it for the rest of her life, probably. Every survivor would, but they had survived. Against odds that should have been impossible, they'd made it out. And in the process, they'd exposed the truth. They'd caught the man responsible. They'd given the world a fighting chance to stop this before it spread further. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to balance against the lives lost. But it was something. Emma Rhodes, photographer for the Portland Tribune, opened her eyes. Outside the medical tent, the sun was beginning to rise on November 1st, 2019. The day after Halloween. The day after the world changed. She stood up, squared her shoulders, and followed the CDC official out to give her testimony. She had a story to tell, the most important story of her life. And she'd tell it with every detail, every moment, every terrible truth. Because that's what survivors did. They remembered. They spoke. They made sure the world never forgot what happened on the night when a zombie walk became real. 3 months later, Emma's photographs won the Pulitzer Prize. Dr. Marcus Webb was convicted on 47 counts of bioterrorism and 12,947 counts of murder. The quarantine zones remained in place for 18 months. The CDC developed a vaccine. The world learned to be more careful about what it celebrated. And on Halloween 2020, the zombie walks didn't happen. Nobody wanted to dress up as monsters anymore. They'd all seen the real thing.